I'm going to mute everyone. Hang on, let me mute everybody first, Trish, and then you can unmute and go for it. Okay. Trish, you're muted.
But I unmuted.
Hey.
Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website, our podcast, and our YouTube channel. We record in audio only. Feel free to use the podcast on our website along with your big book as a resource if you missed the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so that you can follow along. Tonight's recap will start on page 151, where it says for most normal folks, and will end on page 153, where it says who must find a way out. And our study tonight will start on page 153 in the chapter, and will end on page 155, where it says God might give him mastery. And do we have any announcements?
Hi, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic. And we pretty much took care of all of the business last week as your DCM. I would like to invite you, you can come in on Zoom to our PI and CPC workshop that we're doing in District 40. For on May 17th. So if you are interested and would like to know more about public information and cooperation with professional community, we would love to have you with us. So that's all that we currently have going on right now, but hey, more will be revealed, you know. And moving right into the meeting. Good evening once again, family. My name is Jamie, and I'm a very grateful recovered alcoholic. Welcome to the Lppbbsg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. To prepare for our Big Book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of meditation followed by our family's Foglight prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Trish. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted and sharing, as to not distract others or even possibly yourself. We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. And just a friendly reminder that absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share, and we will call on you in the order that hands are raised.
From the forward to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are: focus on your breath and posture, breathe in God, and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God. Let the craziness of the day drift away and ask God to help you focus on the study.
And now I'm going to do something I haven't done in a long time. Oh, when the monks come marching in. Enjoy your time with God, folks, and we're going to bring in the monks to do what the monks do so well. And welcome back. And if you'd like to join us in our family's fog light prayer, it is on your screen in front of you. Fog light prayer. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
And let's have our secretary's report. Come on in, Susan.
Hey everybody, my name is Susan. I'm your recovered alcoholic secretary. I've asked Larry to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Larry.
I'm Larry, and I am an alcoholic, and this is our recovered statement. Recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism. That presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we're not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime. But we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body, page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday, starting at 5:30 Central Time with the Durable Fellowship Cage, where we chatter for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzards. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and we ask that you be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our Big Book study seriously. Because of this, chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a Big Book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the forward to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX, of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapsed. And the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. Can we have a show of hands of people joining us for the first time?
We got a couple new folks with us tonight. Welcome. They have dark screens right now.
Welcome. And then the recovered alcoholics. All right, these are your potential sponsors. Is anyone celebrating a milestone this week?
Doesn't look like it.
All right. If you should require a Big Book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by buzzard mail. The delivery time is questionable. Please remember to practice our seventh tradition by donating to the group address. It's already Venmo or PayPal posted in chat and on the screen. Our suggestion is to purchase a Big Book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website, which is also posted in the chat. Thank you, and as hard as I pray, I still am nervous. Thank you.
You did a great job, Susan. Thank you, Susan and Larry, for being of service tonight. You did a great job, my friend. From chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
Before we begin our study of the Big Book, we reviewed Tradition 11. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 12. Please refer to page 562 of our book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And come on in, Lisa.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa. I'm an alcoholic. I don't know why, I'm a little nervous tonight, but that's okay. So tonight we're on step 12. In the short form, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. And the long form. And finally, we of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the principle of anonymity has an immense spiritual significance. It reminds us that we are to place principles before personalities, that we are actually to practice a genuine humility, this to the end that our great blessings may never spoil us, that we shall forever live in thankful contemplation of Him who presides over us all. And I found something that I relate to, that I'd like to share. Making myself anonymous. Tradition 12 seems like a step to me. It's so spiritual and its focus on anonymity. Someone said it well. What is shared in meetings is more important than who said it. The hard part for me is to remember that I, too, am a personality. When I start thinking that what I share is really important, that people really need to hear me, well, I put my own personality before the very principles I am attempting to convey. I start to think of myself as being uniquely capable of transmitting the message of recovery from alcoholism. Suddenly, I am the person everyone needs to hear. Sure, how boring, yet predictable. As a lifelong know-it-all, people pleaser, caretaker, mind reader, problem fixer, and control freak, I am incredibly susceptible to believing my own propaganda. Of course, pretty soon, someone lets me know that I am really very, very dispensable, and my input or advice isn't needed. Thank you very much. When I go to meetings, I am reminded that I am one among many. This is truly a we program. Other people's recovery doesn't depend solely on me. There are so many terrific people in the program who can help other alcoholics, including me. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Lisa. Great job. Thank you for being a service for the last 3 weeks on the traditions. And next week we will have a new traditionalist come in, and it will be Marilyn, our related pickle. So, moving on, it is time for our weekly segment of That Ain't in the Book. We hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. One of those things we often hear is, there are no musts in the program. Kenny's going to come in and tell us what it has to say about that on page 85 in the second paragraph. Welcome, Kenny.
Okay. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you for your service tonight.
As we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
In order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use the Big Book Study Guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Tonight we're going to start our recap on page 151, which will be read tonight by Donald, followed by our study portion read by Nancy. After the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium starting back at our study portion that Nancy reads. The answers will be one sentence unless otherwise specified, and multi-part questions are simply a one-sentence answer split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Basically, in English, what that means is we are going to read the material once through and then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the question gives us a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed the study, we open up for comment, questions, and observations based on what was just read. If you have spiritual experience with this information, you are free to share. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, you may hear a timer beep to let you know that your time is finished, or to please wrap up your final thoughts.
Which reminds me, I better open the timer app. However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, for example with your sponsor, please don't tell us about being an axe killer during this meeting. Please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which bring us to the words of one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps, is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group.
Trish, just for Grinsies, tonight I'm going to let you do the how we got here.
Thanks.
Sure, I don't want you to forget, don't you know?
Oh, I know how we got here. We got here because we all met in a meeting and we're all invited to this meeting.
That's right.
But we have just celebrated our 5th year anniversary on Zoom for this meeting, which is a whole lot of learning and a whole lot of reading that we've done over those 5 years. And as we read, we are on week 84 this week in a 94-week study. And we read about a page and a half or 2 weeks each week. We didn't just randomly open the book tonight and say, let's read 151. We start on the title page and we read each page, the appendix, the forwards, the preface, the first 164 pages, and then with this question and answer format, we also read Dr. Bob's story, Dr. Bob's nightmare, and we spend 2 weeks on the traditions. But before we wrap it up, we spend our final week, week 94, on Appendix 2, the Spiritual Awakening, because, that's such a big part of our program here, is that spirituality. And after we finish that up, we circle around and do it all over again. So we're in the middle of our 3rd season, or our 3rd time through the book, and our 5th year of being a meeting on Zoom. The meeting started in January, but on Zoom 100%. That was last week's anniversary. Thanks.
Thanks, and I'll take your line for you. How's that? Thanks for swapping tonight. Before we start the recap, we will need 5 or 6 virtual hands raised if you would like to be one of our answer readers. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting are recorded in audio only so that we can put them onto our website and onto our YouTube channel, which are excellent study resources. Or when you're cleaning the house, doing the laundry, you put it on, you listen to it, and it's very helpful. So, with that being said, Gandalf the Red Pickle, come on in. Oh, you're Grand Elf tonight, so you're hard to keep up with some days, brother.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Donald, and I am a very grateful, recovered but not cured pickle. Okay, so starting chapter 11, A Vision for You. For most normal folks, drinking means conviviality, companionship, and colorful imagination. It means release from care, boredom, and worry. It is joy miss intimacy with friends and a feeling that life is good. But not so with us in those last days of heavy drinking. The old pleasures were gone. They were but memories. Never could we recapture the moments of the past. There was an instant yearning to enjoy life as we once did, and a heartbreaking obsession that some new miracle of control would enable us to do it. There was always one more attempt and one more failure. The less people tolerated us, the more we withdrew from society and from life itself. As we became subjects of King Alcohol, shivering denizens of his mad realm, the chilling vapor that is loneliness settled down. It thickened, ever becoming blacker. Some of us sought out sordid places, hoping to find understanding, companionship, and approval. Momentarily we did. Then would come oblivion and the awful awakening to face the hideous four horsemen: terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. Unhappy drinkers who read this page will understand. Now and then a serious drinker, being dry at the moment, says, "I don't miss it at all. I feel better, work better, having a better time." As ex-drinkers, we smile at such a sally. We know our friend is like a little boy whistling in the dark to keep up his spirits. He fools himself. Inwardly, he would give anything to take a half dozen drinks and get away with them. He will presently try the old game again, for he isn't happy about his sobriety. He cannot picture life without alcohol. Someday he will be unable to imagine life either with or without alcohol. Yeah, sorry about that. Then he will know loneliness such as few do. He will be at the jumping off place. He will wish for the end. We have shown how we got out from under. You say, "Yes, I'm willing, but am I consigned to a life where I shall be stupid, boring, and glum, like some righteous people I know? I know I must get along without liquor, but how can I? Have you a sufficient substitute?" Yes, there is a substitute, and it is vastly more than that. It is a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous. There you will find release from care, boredom, and worry. Your imagination will be fired. Life will mean something at last. The most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead. Thus we find the fellowship, and so will you. How is that to come about, you ask? Where am I to find these people? You are going to meet these new friends in your own community. Near you, alcoholics are dying helplessly like people in a sinking ship. If you live in a large place, there are hundreds. High and low, rich and poor, these are future fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. Among them, you will make lifelong friends. You will be bound to them with new and wonderful ties. You will escape disaster together, and you will commence shoulder to shoulder your common journey. Then you will know what it means to give of yourself that others may survive and rediscover life. You will learn the full meaning of love thy neighbor as thyself. It may seem incredible that these men are to become happy, respected, and useful once more. How can they rise out of such misery? But bad repute and hopelessness. The practical answer is that since these things have happened among us, they can happen with you, should you wish them above all else and will be willing to make use of our experience. We are sure they will come. The age of miracles is still with us. Our own recovery proves that. Our hope is that when this chip of a book many, we are sure, will rise to their feet and march on. They will approach still other sick ones, and fellowships of Alcoholics Anonymous may spring up in each city and hamlet, havens for those who must find a way out. Thank you for letting me be of service.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for being of service. And Nancy, Hand-Rolled Pickle, is going to do our study, and where Nancy is starting right now, folks, this is where we're going to come back to when we go to the questions part of the meeting, and the answers will come right out of the book. So welcome, Nancy.
Nancy, the hand-rolled pickle alcoholic. In the chapter Working with Others, you gathered an idea of how we approach and aid others to help. Suppose now that through you, several families have adopted this way of life. You will want to know more of how to proceed from that point. Perhaps the best way of treating you to a glimpse of your future will be to describe the point of the fellowship among us. Here is a brief account. Years ago, in 1935, one of our members made a journey to a certain western city. From a business standpoint, his trip came off badly. Had he been successful in his enterprise, he would have been set on his feet financially, which at the time seemed vitally important. But his venture wound out. His venture wound up in a lawsuit and bogged down completely. The proceedings were shot through with much hard feeling and controversy. Bitterly discouraged, he found himself in a strange place, discredited and almost broke. Still physically weak and sober but a few months, he saw that his predicament was dangerous. He wanted so much to talk with someone, but whom? One dismal afternoon, he paced a hotel lobby, wondering how his bill was to be paid. At one end of the room stood a glass-covered directory of local churches. Down the lobby, a door opened into an attractive bar. He could see the gay crowd inside. In there, he would find companionship and release. Unless he took some drinks, he might not have the courage to scrape an acquaintance and would have a lonely weekend. Of course, he couldn't drink, but why not sit hopefully at the table, a bottle of ginger ale before him? After all, he had not been sober 6 months now. Perhaps he could handle, say, 3 drinks, no more. Fear gripped him. He was on thin ice. Again, it was the old insidious insanity of that first drink. With a shiver, he turned away and walked out to the lobby to the church directory. Music and gay chatter still floated to him from the bar. But what about his responsibilities? His family and men who would die because they would not know how to get well. Ah, yes, those other alcoholics. There must be many such in this town. He would phone a clergyman. His sanity returned and he thanked God. Selecting church at a random from the directory, he stepped into a booth and lifted the receiver. His call to the clergyman led him presently to a certain resident of the town, who, though formerly able and respected, was then nearing the nadir of alcoholic despair. It was the usual situation: home in jeopardy, wife ill, children distracted, bills in arrears, and standing damaged. He had a desperate desire to stop, but saw no way out, for he had earnestly tried many avenues of escape. Painfully aware of being somehow abnormal, the man did not fully realize what it meant to be alcoholic. When our friend related his experience, the man agreed that no amount of willpower he might muster could stop his drinking for long. A spiritual experience he considered was absolutely necessary, but the price seemed high upon the basis suggestion. He told how he lived in constant worry about those who might find out about his alcoholism. He had, of course, the familiar alcoholic obsession that few knew of his drinking. Why, he argued, should he lose the remainder of his business only to bring still more suffering to his family by foolishly admitting his dislike to people from whom he made his livelihood? He would do anything, he said, but that. Being intrigued, however, he invited our friend to his home. Some time later, and just as the thought he was getting control of his liquor situation, he went on a ruined bender. For him, this was the spree that ended all sprees. He saw that he would have to face his problems squarely, that God might give him mastery. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Well done, as always, my friend. And now we are going back right to where Nancy began. And for our answer readers, you will all need to unmute yourself, please. And also, please speak clearly into your microphones. Larry, you'll have to unmute. Thank you. I love it when compliance happens. And we're batting order tonight will be Kenny, then Larry, and Nancy, and Billy, and William. So welcome and thank you for being of service, folks. Kenny, first question comes to you, sir. What did you learn in Chapter 7?
In the chapter Working with Others, you gathered an idea of how we approach and aid others to help.
Thank you so much. Larry, since you followed the directions laid out for us in that chapter, what has happened?
Suppose now that though several families have adopted this way of life.
Thank you. And Nancy, what will you now want to know?
You will want to know more of how to proceed from that point.
Thank you. And Billy, how do we propose to give you a glimpse of what can be your future? Please read to the semicolon.
Okay, but when I scrolled back, I missed where we are at.
Perhaps the best. Perhaps the best way.
In chapter 7, right?
No, we're not
No.
we're not in chapter 7. We're in a vision for you on page
okay.
on page 153. We were just talking about chapter 7.
That's where I got lost. Sorry, because I had both chapters open.
Be about 5 or 6 lines down. Starts with perhaps the best way. And read it to the semicolon.
I'm getting there. On 153. Okay. Maybe you should pass. And catch
Okay,
up.
William, I'll take it to you, sir. I'll ask the question again. How do we propose to give you a glimpse of what can be your future? Read to the semicolon, please.
Perhaps the best way of creating for you to a glimpse of your future will be to describe the growth of the fellowship among us. It is a brief account.
Thank you. And I forgot to mention that Trish will be coming in with about 4 or 5 comments. So welcome, Trish.
And my first comment, here we are giving a brief review of Bill's story.
Thank you. And Kenny, coming right back to you, sir. It is a 2-part question. A, the brief account begins when? And B, how did it begin?
Years ago in 1935, one of our numbers made a journey to a certain western city.
Thank you,
From a
Larry.
business
Nope.
standpoint, his trip came off badly.
Okay, you took Larry's question, so now I'm going to ask the question, and Larry, you'll answer it. How did his business deal go?
From a business standpoint, his trip came off badly.
Thank you, Nancy. If his business deal had gone well off, what would have been his expected future?
Had he been successful in his enterprise, he would have been set on his feet financially, which at the time seemed vitally important.
Thank you. And Billy, coming to you now. But how did his deal wind up?
But his venture wound up in a lawsuit, bogged down completely.
Okay, and William, what did the proceeding produce?
The proceeding was shot through with much hard feeling and controversy.
Okay, hang on one second. Okay. Kenny, coming back to you. Very discouraged. How did he find himself?
Bitterly discouraged, he found himself in a strange place, discredited, and almost broke.
Thank you. And Larry Scuba Pickle, you get three. You get a three-part question tonight. So A, what physical condition was he? B, how long had he been sober? And C, what could he see for someone else?
Still physically weak and sober but a few months, he saw that his predicament was dangerous.
Thank you. And Nancy, what was it he really wanted?
He wanted so much to talk with someone, but whom?
And Billy, on that afternoon, what was he wondering?
One dismal afternoon, he paced a hotel lobby, wondering how his bill was to be paid.
Thank you. William, what was at the end of the lobby?
At the end of the room stood a glass-covered director of local churches.
Thank you. And I'm going from memory here. I don't want to look at my page. Kenny, coming back to you. What was at the other end? Okay, starts with down the lobby, Kenny.
Down the lobby, a door opened into an attractive bar.
Thank you. Larry, what did he see there?
He could see the gay crowd inside.
Thank you. Nancy, what might he find there?
In there, he would find companionship and release.
Exactly. Billy, what might... no, I'm sorry, two-part question. A, without a couple of drinks, he was afraid he would not have what? And B, how would his weekend be?
Unless he took some drinks, he might not have the courage to scrape an acquaintance and would have a lonely weekend.
Thank you. And William, coming to you, sir. Even though he knew he couldn't afford to drink, what was he thinking?
Of course, he could not drink, but why not sit hopeless at a table?
A little more, William.
A bottle of gin ale before him, with a bottle of gin ale.
Okay, thank you. And Kenny, coming back to you, two-part question. A, why not? And B, he had been sober for how long?
After all, had he not been sober for 6 months?
Thank you. Larry, what did his alcoholic mind, the insidious insanity, say to him?
Perhaps he could handle, say, 3 drinks, no more.
Thank you. Nancy, what did his experience, I think that should be reworded, Trish. Oh, no, it's not. I'm reading it wrong. What did he experience with that thought?
Oh, fear gripped him.
Exactly. And Billy, how secure did he feel?
He was on thin ice.
Yes, he was. And William, coming back to you, what was he experiencing?
Again, it was the old insidious insanity, that first drink.
Thank you. Kenny, what did he do?
With a shiver, he turned away and walked down the lobby to the church directory.
Yes. Larry, what was he still hearing?
Music and gay chatter still floated to him from the bar.
Yes. Nancy, 2-part question. A, who did he think of? And B, especially, who did he think of?
What about his responsibilities? His family and the man who would die because they would not know how to get well. Yes. Those other alcoholics?
Yes. And Billy, should it be very difficult to find one?
There must be many such in this town.
Thank you. William, what would he do?
He would phone a clergyman.
And Kenny, what returned and what did he do because it did?
His sanity returned, and he thanked God.
Thank you. Larry, what did he do then?
Selecting a church at random from the directory, he stepped into a booth and lifted the receiver.
Thank you. Nancy, 2-part question. A, where did his call lead him? And B, in what condition was this formerly able, respected person?
His call to the clergyman had him presently to a certain resident of the town, who, though formerly able and respected, was then viewing the nadir of alcoholic despair. I don't know what nadir means.
You're about to find out. Trisha's going to tell us.
Nadir means the bottom or the lowest point.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Trish. Billy, what was his situation?
It was the usual situation. Home in jeopardy, wife ill, children distracted, bills in arrears, and standing damaged.
Thank you. William, 2-part questions are A, what was his desperate desire? And B, had he given up hope?
He had a desperate desire to stop, but saw no way out.
Keep going.
For he had earnestly tried many avenues of escape.
Thank you. Kenny, coming back to you. The question is, he knew he was not normal, but what was it he did not know?
Painfully aware of being somehow abnormal, the man did not fully realize what it meant to be alcoholic.
Thank you. And you folks will notice that there is an asterisk in your books, and Trish is going to tell us about that asterisk.
And that asterisk indicates a footmark or a footnote which identifies the principles of this story and where we may find their stories in this book. This refers to Bill's first visit with Dr. Bob. These men later became co-founders of AA. Bill's story opens the text of this book. Dr. Bob's heads up the story section. This meeting took place at the home of Henrietta Seiberling, Though not an alcoholic, Henrietta became a good friend of AA.
Thank you. And Larry, after Bill told his story, with what did Dr. Bob agree?
When our friend related his experience, the man agreed that no amount of willpower he might muster could stop his drinking for long.
Thank you. Nancy, two-part question.
Yay.
A, what did Dr. Bob concede as being absolutely necessary? And B, how did he first feel about the program of action?
A spiritual experience he considered was absolutely necessary, but the price seemed high upon the basis suggested.
Is this the high price we pay, giving up ego deflation and self-reliance, leading to God-reliance?
Oh, damn the bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, that was Nancy. Billy, what did he admit to Bill?
He told how he lived in constant worry about those who might find out about his alcoholism.
Thank you. And William, what had Dr. Bob rationalized?
And of course, the familiar alcoholic obsession that few knew of his drinking.
Thank you. Kenny, two-part question. A, what was his argument? And B, the result of which would bring more suffering to whom?
Why, he argued, should he lose the remainder of his business only to bring still more suffering to his family by foolishly omitting his plight to people from whom he made his livelihood?
Thank you. Larry, to what length was he not willing to go?
He would do anything, he said, but that.
Nancy, being intrigued, what did Dr. Bob and Ann do?
Being intrigued, however, he invited our friend to his home.
Thank you. Billy, 3 weeks later, what did Dr. Bob do?
Sometime later, and just as he thought he was getting control of his liquor situation, he went on a roaring bender.
Thank you. William, was this just an overnight drunk?
For him, this was the spree that ended all sprees.
Okay, and Kenny, you started the night off with the first question, and we're going to end it with you with the two-part question. A, what did it convince Dr. Bob he must do? And B, he saw God might do what?
He saw that he would have to face his problem squarely, that God might give him mastery.
Thank you so much, folks. Well done. Everybody can remute. The hands are down. And the meeting is open for sharing, ladies and gentlemen, on what we have just covered. So if you have experience with it, if you have questions about it, if you have spiritual experience with it, if some of this has happened in your life, please, by all means, feel free to share. It's going to be the dental chair tonight, I can tell. It's okay, I know how to meditate. Come on in, Larry. You're muted, Larry.
Yeah, I'm Larry, alcoholic. You know, I remember that I don't see the timer. I don't know if you started it.
Well, I'm giving you a 30-second leeway here.
Okay.
How's that?
You know, when I first came into Alcoholics Anonymous, there was a whole lot of stuff in my life that was preconceived. And one of the things was, you know, I could not think that I could get sober, and definitely I had so much preconceived ideas about religion and spiritual things. I just could not accept that as being the answer if I had to go that direction. And that held my sobriety as far as really being happy and really getting free from and really having the joy of this program for a long, long time. It was only after I could overcome my prejudices of religion and God and the people, because I did it like God. I couldn't see the forest for some of the trees. I blamed some people in churches because of their bad behavior. Therefore, I blamed all of church people. So it was really hard, but I finally got to the place that I could, and when I did, I saw the miracle. The miracle truly did happen. Although I had been stopped drinking for a long time, the real happiness and the real joy and the real depth of this program had not settled into my life until I really could fully conceive the spiritual experience of this program. And I think that's all I got to share tonight.
Thank you, Larry. Glad you are here. Wow, look at that. I can stop the timer with all that time on the clock. Who's next? Come on in, William. Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, good evening to everybody. My name is William Alcoholic. When we read stuff like this, it gives me a chance to reflect how I was when I went back, when I first got introduced the 12 step. When I first got 12 step, I got 12 step through my job, through my union and stuff. I definitely felt the same way I feel them. I could see them, and I could see right there when they think about the economical situation and what life was. I remember the guy was telling me that 12 step man. He tell me, he said, we want to send you away tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Go home, pack your bags, be ready. I said, no, give me 30 days. Give me 30 days. I want to catch my rent up. I want to catch all these other things up, my bills and everything that was behind. I want to catch that up. He said, no, you need to go away right away. You know what I mean? And definitely whenever we're reading this tonight, I can see the high power with Bill, because Bill was thinking the same way I was, about his economical situation. If this deal don't go down, if this deal go down, I'll be okay. But as I began to listen, I could begin to see the higher power there with him that follow him straight to Dr. Barr. It was more in that room than they were, and Dr. Barr was thinking the same way that Bill was thinking about the economic. Who's going to know about this? And that's the way I was. It's like in my neighborhood, I could go to 7 meetings a day within walking distance from my house, But I didn't want to show up in a meeting because I was so afraid of what other people were going to think about me going into these meetings. And once I found out about alcoholism, But you can find myself, I used to try to sneak into my own house, when I went out and come back daybreaking and people on their way to work. I had sunglasses on, my coat collar turned up, cap pulled out over my face, trying to sneak back into my own place, man. So definitely I did not understand alcoholism. I thought I could do it by myself. I don't need it, but somewhere along the line, through all the relapse and stuff, I began to say, this work, it will work, I seen other people work for other people, And the reason why it worked for me with a belly full of AA, a head full of AA and a belly full of alcohol, I began to identify, oh yeah, that's what they talking about. That's what they talking about. And I don't pray for that here today. I don't pray for to be sober, No matter what goes on in my life, I know God is there with me. And that's what this sort of drove home tonight, what we read, how God would follow them around no matter where they went. It was God that would have taken those other things. And today, I am sober because this God-given program worked with Dr. Bob and Bill. So thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you, William. Glad you are here. Okay, who's up to bat now? Well, Trish, hi.
I'm Christian, I'm an alcoholic. And I'm going to share going backwards on the reading. Because, I remember thinking the way Dr. Bob did when Bill went to see him. And he told how he lived in constant worry about people who might find out about his alcoholism, and he had that familiar alcoholic obsession. No one knew about his drinking, and he would do anything but that, meaning stop drinking. Why should he lose the remainder of his business only to bring more suffering to his family? And I remember in early sobriety, I was never real concerned that people who knew me would be in meetings. I don't know why that never crossed my mind, because, I was always brought up that appearances to people outside of the family are more important than what you're really feeling and what's really going on. And I was in a meeting probably within the first month, and one of the parents of one of my friends walked into the meeting. And I stopped in my tracks. And she saw me not knowing anybody else in the rooms. And it was she was the last person I'd expect to see in the room. And she's like, "You come here?" And I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "Oh, that's really cool." And kind of just continued with the conversation as if I had just said, "Yeah, I'm in a blue shirt, you're in a red shirt." It meant nothing to her, which I thought was wonderful. But she was there not as an alcoholic, but as the parent of an alcoholic, wondering if it was someplace that she would want to refer her son. And I think it helped her to know that I was there, being a little bit younger than he was. But knowing her, not even understanding the traditions in the rooms yet, but knowing her, it never crossed my mind that it would get back to my parents, my family, that I was in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it never did. She never mentioned it again. I never mentioned it. Her daughter and I never had that conversation. So I thought it was kind of cool that she came in with a purpose. We had a conversation, and it didn't bring any more suffering to my family, which it could have if she had mentioned it to them. And then backing up a little bit, where he had a desperate desire to stop and saw no way out, painfully aware of being somehow abnormal. The man did not fully realize what it meant to be an alcoholic. And, my realization of what it meant to be an alcoholic didn't come until I came in these rooms and I recognized and learned about that allergy. There's no way he could have known that at that point. But not recognizing that allergy for me certainly went hand in hand with my comment of, no, I'll do anything, but I'm not giving up drinking. It's the only thing that gets me through. So I can relate to him there. And then where it talked about where Bill was walking back and forth in the lobby, what about his responsibilities, his family, the many who had died because they wouldn't get it? What about those other alcoholics? And that always brings me back to the thought of, no matter where my thinking is, whether it's on drinking or anything else, but anytime my brain is off kilter, I know all I have to do is pick up the phone and call another alcoholic, talk to another alcoholic, and that'll get me back on track. It'll get me back in the center. And I don't know if some of those conversations at this point today would keep somebody from dying. It may bring them further into the rooms, and depending on who I'm talking about, may bring them into the rooms if they're not here yet. But recognizing that responsibility and recognizing that I'm thinking of somebody else, not thinking of me, which is so unlike being an alcoholic who is still out and drinking, but getting rid of that selfishness and self-centeredness and thinking of somebody else knowing that it'll make me feel better, but also realizing that if I get that self-centeredness out and I reach out to somebody else, it's going to help them, but it'll also get me back on track and get me back recentered again. Thanks.
Thank you. And we got 30 minutes left, folks. Billy, come on in. Gonna have to teach you how to raise your virtual hand.
I know how. I just decided to share. I'm an alcoholic. My name is Billy. I haven't read this particular part in a bit.
Whoops, sorry about that.
Yeah, now come on.
Well, it wasn't long lived. Thanks for sharing, Billy. No, come on in. I'll start the clock on you now.
I haven't read this particular section in a while, and it definitely zings me all the way back. I was bouncing in and out of rooms for 2 or 3 or more years because I was in my early 20s, and I grew up being told about my grandfather's drunken escapades and rolling the car 7 times one night and walking away with a scratch on his head because he was so drunk he just bounced. He didn't break. And I always thought that was kind of a challenge to live up to. It didn't scare me off. And when I got here, well, which time, at age 22, 23, 24, or 25, I didn't believe alcohol was the problem. I thought I was crazy. And if they would just lock me up in the state hospital and throw me in the corner with some good meds, then everything would fix itself. Or if Mr. Hill-Do would float up the river and scoop me up on his boat and off we go into the sunshine, I'd be fixed. Because I grew up with these Ozzie and Harriet stereotypical, unrealistic beliefs of how life was supposed to go. And so admitting, one of my favorite quotes is, who wants to admit complete defeat? And as a newcomer, and even sometimes today, I still kind of shake my head, nope, not it. And then I call a sponsor or a friend in the rooms and say, okay, this is going on, and I want to stomp my feet and act like a 2-year-old and not get my way, and I need somebody to talk it out of me. I'm grateful that throughout that 25th year, I just kept coming back because there was a power greater than myself that wanted to put my sorry, naive little butt in jail, and I was willing to go to any lengths to not go to jail. And if that meant, and all my drunken friends said, just keep going to AA, because by the time you go to court, maybe you'll have the measure of sobriety and you could tell the judge that, get off. Well, the judge had a different plan. But she did let me go without jail time because it was mandatory. The state had made it mandatory like a month before I rolled that car. But she let me off. And she told me if I ever showed up in her courtroom again on an alcohol-related offense, that I would do that time plus whatever I was looking at for the next adventure. And by that point, I had put together a couple of months of going to AA. And it started to sink in that yep, all my delusional thoughts of what would fix me were unrealistic. By the way, the river was barely a brook. You couldn't get a 40-foot yacht up it, let alone a 40-inch toy boat. So I wasn't thinking very clear back in the day. AA's taught me that if I want a yacht, I got to build it one day at a time. And I'm okay with that. I don't have a yacht, but I got a bunch of other cool stuff that I've been able to afford because I wasn't handing my paycheck to my favorite bartender and getting $50 back for walking expenses for the week. So I'm grateful to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. I can relate to that. Yeah, can I start a new tab and it's payday? I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
Seashell Pickle, come on in. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa. I'm an alcoholic. Boy, almost 100 years ago, and I can relate. And only I never walked by a lobby or a bar without drinking. I wish I could say I did, but and here we're at how many up times perhaps I could handle, say, 3 drinks. Yeah, I just didn't get it. I just didn't know. And I mean, the amount of times that I did it and failed, that is just blows my mind. It's the insanity of this disease, the big lie, the denial I was in. It was something. And over, I think on the next page, when our friend related his experience, the man agreed that no amount of willpower he might muster could stop his drinking for long. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was going to always do it different, or somehow I was going to do it. And usually, you know, before my first, like, I can remember so many times before I had my first drink, I'd already be trying to figure out how I was going to control it. And right there, it already was controlling me before I even put it in my mouth. It had, you know, and I usually wasn't too happy, you know. How's it going to be different? It's going to be different this time. But never was. And yeah, and you know, whether it was a year, 6 months, 3 months, I did 2 years once. No, I could never stay stopped. A spiritual experience, he conceded, was absolutely necessary. I don't know what the heck a spiritual experience was. I know now. You know, it's my perspective. It's how I look at people, places, and things. Life. God now. It's just so different. My outlook's very different. You know, we were talking a little bit in a meeting last night. I remembered someone talking about like a kaleidoscope, you know, and mine has changed. It's not all dark anymore. You know, and it's from doing this work and this book and learning and you know, that thinking. Oh boy, that takes me to some freaking places. But you know what? I don't stay stuck in it anymore. You know, I know what to do with the tools and bringing God into my day. Guide me, guide my thinking, my thoughts. You know, there's so many tools, and you know, I just had to be willing. And it's just. It's much easier this way. And I don't know what I was nervous about. You know, the book. I can remember going to certain, when I tried some big book meetings or step meetings. So I was always very nervous, you know. And I was this time in the beginning. But, you know, it gets easier and you feel more comfortable and start learning about what's going on the disease. And, it's just so much easier and so much more peaceful. And when I start going down that road of negative thinking, I know what to do. I pick up the phone. I try to get out of it as quick as I can. Try to stay focused on myself and what I can do to help myself. Wow, I went over the time. Oh my word. Boy, have I changed. Okay, well, I'll stop now. Thanks, everybody.
Well, I can let you have everybody else's time since they were so short, Lisa. Thank you so much. Glad you're here. Mayella, welcome. Good to see you, my friend. Come on in.
Hi, alcoholic. That word, NADIN, or R, nadir, alcoholic despair. I didn't know that I had that. It took, my story's in chapter 10, it took my employer to help me out, to show me that, I needed some help, if I would like some help. When I went into outpatient rehab, I was sober 3 months, and I thought because I didn't have a drop of alcohol or any other party favors, that I was cured, that I can have a drink, just one drink, where it says, perhaps you can handle, say, 3 drinks. Well, that was me after 3 months, thinking that I didn't have no fear. I just had a lot of I was thirsty, so to speak. So King Alcohol was like, you can never talk bad about King Alcohol. He was like my baby. You can talk about all those other things that I was doing, but not King Alcohol. So I had to get a grip. Because I had a responsibility, I didn't want to lose my job. I didn't want to lose all the things that I worked hard to get, like my mortgage, my son. So, yeah. And then, the spiritual experience, that didn't start happening until I started going into the rooms of AA, which was different from outpatient rehab. It was way different. I was introduced to the language of the heart, so to speak. I felt like all of them that would share their experience, and I used to consider myself being in a recreational drinker, where I would just drink on my days off. Like I had a ritual where I would go pick up all my stuff, go pick up the kid from the sitter, and like fly straight home because I wanted to get started. So the alcohol obsession, it was there all week, throughout the week of my week period. I couldn't wait to get off work so I could start my ritual. Working with others is what I struggle to just do, because I always find myself like I don't know. I've always just had like this mental block, like working with others. It's not so much that I don't want to relate to another alcoholic. I totally relate. It's just, like everybody's willingness and our experiences are different. But, working with others is what I struggle with, but it's not impossible. That's why I'm here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, my friend. And your dog has a beautiful baritone voice. Glad you are with us. Who is next?
I guess I'm gonna go.
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay.
Do I have to raise my hand still?
No, you're already out of your hobbit hut, so come on in.
Good evening, everyone. Donald Gandalf, the Red Pickle, and I'm such a grateful recovered but not cured alcoholic. I related to the third paragraph. On page 154, Seth, one dismal afternoon, he paced the lobby and wondering how he was going to pay his hotel bill. How am I going to pay rent? Oh, hell, might as well just get drunk. That's what I used to think and stuff, But you look at it, and whenever we were drinking, or at least whenever I was drinking, I had the opportunity. This end, this choice over here, call it church. This over here, continued chaos. And I don't know how many times I went this way instead of that church. And, in all actuality and stuff, I should be dead today. But I am so grateful that I'm not, because I know that my story can benefit others. And a lot of Bill's story, tells us about me, my story. The loneliness, the despair, the four horsemen, all that stuff. And I told myself a lot of lies whenever I was drinking. And you know what? I believed them. And whenever I got my meeting, my first service meeting, I went to a thrift store looking for a coffee cup. And I found one. And this is it. World's Greatest Lies. Oh my gosh. Okay. Your money cheerfully refunded. I'm here with the government, and I'm here to help. It goes on to so many things and stuff. So glad you stopped by. The doctor will call you right back. Here's the famous one. The check is in the mail. But this one here is why I bought the cup. Let's just stop for one. And it's like I had to have that stuff. And because today I can understand what that lie means. And if it wouldn't have been for the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, whenever I get out of prison, I probably would have gone back to drinking. If that nurse didn't tell me and stuff, tell me, use this time to get the help that you need so that you can help somebody else. But you know what? Those words sunk in, and that's what I do today. I enjoy doing book studies now and stuff where I used to never do and stuff. I had a couple of them during the week. Different ones, different styles, different people, different perspectives. And I draw my own conclusion. And I conclude that know who I am. And it's a family I don't have anymore. You know, my mother and father are all gone. My sister is the only one that's close to me and stuff, and she helped support me while I was in prison. But whenever I got out, it's like that was that. But I want to thank the Academy and Mr. Pickles and the Toe Tappin' and the Slackers and the Scubas, the Hand Rolls, the BXMY, the Seashell, the Harvester, and all the other pickles that are in the room for being part of my family and sharing, your life with me and stuff. So God bless you guys.
Thank you, brother. Love you. We have time for another one before I come in and close out. Any takers? Well then, I guess I'll go ahead and go. Good evening, family. My name's Jamie, very grateful, recovered alcoholic, and so glad that all of you are with us tonight. And, I absolutely love this chapter, and I love the way that tonight's reading started off about what we learned in Chapter 7, the chapter Working with Others. Okay? And Chapter 7 gives us, even though it does not use the word sponsorship, it certainly alludes to the idea, and it gives us very clear-cut directions of how to work with others. I've listened to a whole lot of sponsors tell their pigeons that, well, you got to do this and you got to do that, and so on and so forth. There's nowhere in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous that tells me I get to tell anybody you gotta. There's nowhere that it exists in those pages. It says that I share my own experience with them, and I present opportunities to them. And that's all we're doing when we're working with others. So there should be no fear in that of like, oh my God, am I gonna do it right? Okay? If I'm sharing my truth and what happened to me and how I have managed to get sober and change, then I'm simply sharing them what the facts are instead of some silly illusion that's not based in fact. And I love how it also talks about, suppose now that through you, several families have adopted this way of life. So there's something very important in the chapter to Working with Others, the family afterward, chapter to Wives, that comes with us as well. And that is that we learn how to work with family members as well. I know alcoholics who say, well, I'll only work with the alcoholic, I won't work with their family. But sometimes we have to work with their families in order to give their families hope, so that they will know that their alcoholic is on the right path. Now, that does not mean that we break any confidentiality or anything that goes along with that. I've worked with the significant others of other alcoholics. I never break the confidentiality of an alcoholic, and I never break their significant others' confidentiality either. That's a discussion for the two of them to have together. What anybody tells me, I'm going to take to my grave, and that's very important. So I love the way that from that, it says, perhaps the best way of treating you to a glimpse of your future will be to describe the growth of the fellowship among us. Here's a brief account. Then it automatically goes into Bill being in the Mayflower Hotel. And not knowing how not only how he's going to pay his next bill or his hotel bill, but if he's alcoholic like me, and Bill and I are very much alike in the sense of how we drank, he's probably also thinking about, well, how can I drink all weekend and get through it? Once I start, how can I have enough? So I think this is the appropriate time to hold up the world's smallest shot glass. It's a thimble, and I have to, Trish, you see that? Will you take care of that? From the time I take the first sip of this first one, somewhere between the first one and the bottom of the second one, the allergy is going to kick in, the phenomenon of craving is going to start, and then that mental obsession about not thinking about the one I'm drinking right now will kick in, but that fourth or fifth one, or how am I going to get through the night, because that's the way my alcoholic brain works. And I love it when he goes, pacing the lobby of the Mayflower Hotel. So as some of our history shows us, in Bill's story, and here it talks us that he goes to the directory and he just dials the number of a clergyman, right? But my understanding is he called about 4 or 5 and they didn't answer. And the one that he got a hold of was the one that connected him with Henrietta Sieverling. So is it odd or is it God? Had that not happened, had Bill's business venture gone well, Bill probably would have been drinking or at a whoopee party or something, and we wouldn't have Alcoholics Anonymous today. And we're getting ready to celebrate our 90th anniversary in Alcoholics Anonymous on June 10th. So, this is all significant stuff. I can see God's fingerprints all over this. So, I am what? So this is a really, really vital part of our group, or of our program. And Dr. Bob, night Nancy, Dr. Bob, while he saw the need for all of this, there was that resistance. When he says the price was too high to pay, what? You mean I have to give up self? That fear of the image. You know what? Everybody in town knew I was a drunk. Everybody at the bar knew I was a drunk. Not to mention the fact that I was playing with alcohol's cousins, those non-conference approved substances. So that was important as well. So I don't know, I just absolutely love this chapter. I am grateful for that, for the meeting of Bill and Bob. And there again, Dr. Bob was sober for 3 weeks when he went on that prodigious bender. And here's the interesting thing about it. When Bill picked him up, he had a surgery the next morning. And Bill had to give him a couple of beers to quiet his nerves. Now, some of us know what kind of doctor Dr. Bob was, and I'm not quite sure I'd want him operating me or operating on my tush with shaky hands. One slip of the knife and horrible things could happen. So he had to quiet his nerves. But after those couple of beers, he never took another drink again. Right? But he didn't come home after work either. And Bill and Ann were worried about where he was. Yet he was out in the community making amends, admitting that he was an alcoholic, admitting the damage that he'd done, and was out making amends to those that he had harmed. That's a pretty amazing thing. In today's Alcoholics Anonymous, we have these sponsors that say really stupid stuff. Yes, do you hear that recording? Really stupid stuff, like telling their sponsees, oh, I'm going to keep you on step 1 for a year. If a sponsor keeps me on step 1 for a year, I might not be sober at the end of that year. I remember about 5 months sober, my sponsor telling me when I was whining about life's problems, he in his wisdom, he just simply replied with this: Jamie, you know, you're not getting well any faster by procrastinating on your 4th step. So I went home, I started working on it that night, I was done with it the next night, and 2 days later we were in his garage doing my 5th step. What's my point to that? The first 100 took these steps quickly but thoroughly. Quickly but thoroughly. And I believe that we have a higher survival rate when we do that. So much more I could say about all of this, but guess what? We have another 6 weeks to go in this chapter before we move on to other things. So, again, I want to thank you all for being here. Larry, you want to come back in?
Yeah, I'm Larry, I'm an alcoholic. I'm just going to take a minute or so of my time that I left on the clock. I just happen to think, not before this, a few months before this, it was Abby had met Bill and got him acquainted with the Oxford group, and Bill had gotten a spiritual, at least a spiritual connection, through the Oxford group. He had learned some principles, and got some type of a program through the Oxford group. And he was on his way, in recovery. And he was even working with others because he was concerned about people here, in this chapter. What about the men that I'm working with, and other alcoholics? But here we see Bill had the connection of his life when him and Dr. Bob got in. The working with others, that he really needed. He knew that, that was going to be, the 3 legacies working in connection with each other. It was the only way that Bill was going to stay sober. The program, the spiritual side, and the working with others. And we see it so beautifully in this story here. And it's just an amazing example of what it takes to stay sober even today. That's all I got.
Thanks, Larry. Oh, I appreciate you, my friend. Trish, you want to read us out?
Sure. From page 164. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
Amen. Thank you. And we've got a real special way of closing out around here, since we can't hold hands like we do in a bricks and mortar meeting. We hold our hands up in the screen, and anybody who wants to unmute and go out with the Lord's Prayer with us is more than welcome to. I do want to say one thing, and I think it's appropriate, considering that we're reading about the beginning of Alcoholics Anonymous here. There will be 263 alcoholics who die in this country today from untreated alcoholism, 95,000 this year, and 3 million worldwide. And tragically, there is a percentage of them, though it may be small, who have been to Alcoholics Anonymous and didn't want what we have to offer. So after a moment of silence for those who are sick and suffering, please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Here's your moment. Thank you. Who will take us from shame to grace if we let him? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thanks for staying up with us, folks, and those of you who like